Hi, my name is Dr. Georgi Sabo. I serve as a Dean of Graduate Studies at Ubiquity University. And this is our Great Books course, the very last lecture of 2019. And today we have our one and only Dr. Caroline Myss with us, who is going to take us down the rabbit hole in Alice's Wonderland. So over to you, dear Caroline.
Thank you, Georgie. Good morning, everybody. It's morning where I am anyway. Good morning. So last time we got together, first part of Alice, I asked you to do your homework and to imagine 6 impossible things before breakfast. And so at the end of this class, I'm going to lecture for a while, but then I'm going to open this class to you because I want to hear from you. I want to know where your impossible things are, what your thoughts are. But I'm going to emphasize why I gave you that assignment this morning, because it wasn't just a frivolous assignment. Actually, it feeds into my lecture on guidance and the nature of intuition and the nature of how the non-physical world talks to you, because that's an impossible language. Intuition for many people, or inner guidance, speaks through the world of the impossible. So before I get there, I want to talk about rabbit hole. I think that could be one of the most popular metaphors that people use these days. Down the rabbit hole. There's a column in the Daily Beast called The Rabbit Hole. You can find that metaphor used constantly. It's so popular. And by the way, when I was at my desk this morning with one of my copies of Alice and reading Alice again in the last section, which is, I don't know how many of you have ever really read Alice, but I was reading the last chapter 12 of Alice, which is Alice's Evidence. And once again, I was hysterical, and I actually thought I would read some of it to you, but I can't get through this without falling apart laughing. It's just so funny, with the queen screaming off with their head. And the language of absurdity, for some reason, has always appealed to my better nature. And I think because I really asked myself, what the heck is it about this way of thinking that I find so appealing? And I actually think it's because we put so much of our trust in this physical world of ours, in this rational world of ours, in logic, in thinking everything is so what we see. When in fact, what life is that we learn again and again and again that everything we see is an illusion. Just like Buddha said, that the physical world is absolutely not what it looks like. And that every time you trust the logical world, there's a real good chance you're going to end up down the rabbit hole. That where you say, how did this happen to me? How did this happen? I had all my ducks in a row. I had everything lined up. And now here I am. And the bottom fell out from under me and I'm down a rabbit hole. And I think that's part of why the rabbit hole metaphor is so powerful, because the more we try to lock into the physical world, the more we try to sustain ourselves in a universe where we think we have control over things, the more we risk falling down a rabbit hole. Because this, as we learn through spiritual teachings, this physical world is an ever-changing palette of illusions. And here I need to hit the pause button and say, what I teach in workshops on health, what I've learned constantly, is that by the time someone comes to me with a problem, by the time someone is sitting across from me with a tumor, with leukemia, with whatever situation they have, by the time that happens, and they're looking for a logical way through that problem. The truth is that what's in the physical world, I've learned, the illness, is the caboose on their train. It's the result. It's the consequences of everything that happened on all the other train cars. And by the time the illness is manifesting in the body, by the time it got there, there's not a whole lot of help I can be. I learned through the many, many years of my doing intuitive readings that where I am most useful, where I have half a chance of helping you out, so that when we get to the caboose, you don't have that illness, is catching you, having a conversation with you somewhere along the line on that train where you're still in the thought form. You're still in that realm of creativity. You're still in the etheric level of making choices that have yet to manifest fully in physical form. You're still in the realm of the possible and the impossible. What's possible, what's impossible. And these places are your power places. What's possible, what's impossible. You have no idea how much those positions are your power places in life. What's possible and what's impossible. In Alice's evidence, there's a dialogue with the king, and he's trying to decide, I don't know if I could find it, but he's trying to decide a jury verdict on this ridiculous thing. And he says, let me see, should I use the word possible or impossible? I have to decide which way I like it, possible or impossible. But in fact, is it that absurd that that's the way you think? Really? How many times have you yourself actually stood at that same crossroads like that king and Alice and thought, I don't know if this is possible or impossible. And you don't realize, you actually don't realize that you are pulling a trigger here, that you are recalculating how events are going to flow forward in you, in the world behind your eye, down your rabbit hole, by which one of those two words you decide. I want to talk to you for a minute about the white rabbit, which we know is a wondrous character that's made it to songs and movies and posters and everything, the famous white rabbit. I can't imagine that Lewis Carroll would have any idea how much he's influenced druggies and musicians, and I can't even imagine what Lewis Carroll must be thinking. But anyway, I'm late, said the rabbit. And the rabbit's all about time and the watch around him. And he's always off and running to some place, and always about being late. I'm late. And it's all about this relationship with time, with the rabbit. And we have a white rabbit in us, and we are completely regulated by time. And I need to drop something in you as your white rabbit, thought form. And that's how what our relationship with time is, and how we actually create our relationship with time, and how we're obsessed with it, and perhaps why we're obsessed with it. And it's our own personal white rabbit obsession. Here again, I have to go through the door of our biophysical spiritual ecology, our health, our biophysical, spiritual, ecological system, which is our bio-creational system. Because at the end of the day, that's why I chose to teach Alice and why I choose to teach everything, because it all comes down to teaching co-creation for me. All roads lead to Rome, so to speak. Now, in doing a reading, I want you to picture that you have energy coming in through the top of your head. And that energy, in an ideal universe, would go from thought into form, and then from form back into thought, energy into matter, matter into energy, a constant Mobius. And so when I do a reading on you, what I track essentially are places where your energy is outside your orbit and how you have hemorrhaged your energy, what you're holding on to. I think last time we were together, I used a pen and I said, do you want my pen? And I often do that in class. And I do that as a way of illustrating and imprinting on people. Do you want this pen? It's an absurd question. But in this absurdity, I want you to focus on this. You don't want this. And I want you to focus deeply and imprint in yourself what it is like to not want something, to not want it, to completely, totally, fully not want something, so that you get what that feels like. You get exactly what it feels like to not be hemorrhaging your energy. And then, so you have the contrast and you know exactly what it feels like to hemorrhage. When, if I was with you and I said something like, shut up, just shut up, or that's absurd, and I cut you off in the middle of a sentence. And think of the slam that would be. And you would be hit right in the gut. And not only that, then I got up and I walked away. And it was no big deal for me to say that to you, and I ignore it and I go away. But you would feel like this punch to your gut, and your energy would follow me out the room. And then the energy would follow me, your energy would be attached to that experience. And you would begin the experience of hemorrhaging. And then you would tell the story. And then she did this. And then she threw her dinner at me. And then blah, 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 blah. You would create a whole narrative about it. And as that narrative gets bigger, you continue to hemorrhage. All of these places where we hemorrhage in our lives, from events, stories, narratives we create, from things we resent, from control patterns. No, I have to have it this way. I have to have it this way. And if it's not this way, well, then it's going to like be trouble. I have to have this. One of the exercises I give people in my workshop, and this is a fun exercise, and if this was a longer class or a regular class, a different kind of class, one of the exercises I would give you to do is that you would write a little booklet on getting to know me, not me, but you, getting to know me, what you have to know about me. And in that, you have to write down everything everybody needs to know about to get along with you. Everything. What they need to know. I need to get my way. I need to win. These are my expectations of everybody. This is how to get along, what they need to know about you. Do you need to let people know about your wounds? Do you need to be spoken to? In what tone of voice? What are these? Do you need your own space? How often do you need your own space? What are the times you need your own space? All the little peculiarities that you've created for yourself down your rabbit hole. This is your underground area. This is your inner world. This is that space that you regulate with the exact same absurdities that Lewis Carroll created in Wonderland. It's filled with your absurdities, exactly the same way. Your rules, your regulations, just like the king. Well, I don't know if it's possible or impossible, but it's my Wonderland and this is how I do it. And then what I have people do is I have them sit with somebody they haven't met yet, and they give them that, and they say, look, this is me, and in order to get to know me, this is what you need to know about me. I need my own space, but I need my own space every Tuesday afternoon. And I need this and I need that. These are my wounds, and you have to know this about me. And in fact, you begin to sound like Alice in Wonderland. You begin to sound exactly that way. These are your rules and regulations. This is how you run your world. And it's actually your rabbit hole. So if you want to come down my rabbit hole with me, this is how I run my Wonderland. And so if you want to be close, I can only be close 3 days a week. But on the 4th day, I need my space, and you, out the rabbit hole you go, because I need my space and my rabbit hole. So those are the rules. And in my rabbit hole, you can't talk to me too loudly, because these are the tones that I can handle. But if you talk too loudly, I will dart away like the white rabbit, because that's how it's run in my rabbit hole. So if you think that you don't live that way down your rabbit hole, you're mistaken. Now then, back to the rabbit and time. One of the exercises that's worth doing, and it's really worth doing, is that the anchors that drop into us, the anchors that we attach to, they don't drop into us, the anchors we attach to, the things we can't let go of, the ideas. I remember how many times I have been in conversations with people, and they've said, I know I was born for something special. And I thought, oh Christ, here we go again, the special attack. And I don't know what they're thinking, and I'm always thinking, well, then go and do that special thing. But they think special is going to be delivered to them like a FedEx package. Here's your special thing to do. And they always imagine that special thing is something glamorous and special, that everybody is going to just think, you are so special. I don't know, what was I thinking all these years? I didn't know you were so special, but now I know it. But that creative engine, they hold on to this narrative, and they anchor themselves in specialness. They anchor themselves in the belief that they're extraordinary, other than ordinary, because there's an epidemic in which we hold being ordinary in contempt. God, make me anything, but don't make me ordinary, which is another anchor we have. These ideas we have that are unproductive mythologies we hold on to. The idea that someone else, somehow or other, has influenced your life in a less than healthy way, which is why you can't get on with your life in a healthy way. That equation, that's a very common mythology belief that someone anchors themselves into, that somehow or other, unless that equation is righted, unless that person understands how much they've hurt you, you can't get on with your life. It's a very common hemorrhage. What's my point in all this? Here's the point. That every hemorrhage is psychic weight. WEIGHT. Psychic weight. And the more weight you are attached to, the longer you have to WAIT for anything. enter the white rabbit and time. Psychic weight is how we connect and how we create our relationship to wait, W-A-I-T, AKA time. It's how we negotiate our relationship with the creative forces of synchronicity, of coincidence, the speed at which we heal, the speed at which we change. The more anchors you have connected to, the slower the speed of your life moves perceptually, because you are locked in to perceptions that are unchanging, immutable. The only thing that's unchanging is truth. Everything else decays along with time, along with the process of maturation. And we're supposed to let things go. But when we hold on, that decay comes through our cell tissue and it becomes disease. Disease. One of the reasons why, when you have a moment of enlightenment, a sudden, I got it, I got it, I got it, you instantly feel a rush of light. You instantly do. And that in that instant, that psychic weight's gone, light comes in, and instantly your cell tissues have been recalibrated. You are more light. You are, in fact, more in present time. That's not an illusion, that's a fact. That's a biophysical, spiritual, mystical fact. And this brings me to rabbit hole guidance, the impossible impossible again. I don't think people realize how much their relationship with time, the speed of change, the fear of change is built into the fear of healing, of being a whole person. And at the end of the day, the fear of an awake inner life, the fear of accurate guidance, the fear of clarity on the inside. Because when you get clear guidance, you have to act on it. You have to act on it. So you go from thought to form in an instant. If I'm doing a reading on someone and I get a hit, it goes from thought, it goes from instantaneous hit to action in the blink of an eye. Energetic data moves that fast. And it's not blocked because I don't have a fear of that data. It doesn't scare me. It doesn't change my life. It's an instantaneous hit. When we get a hit, like for example, one of the very common responses I hear from people is this: I know I have this feeling I should do something. Now that's an intuitive hit. They've had an intuitive download. And then they counter it with, but, and then they turn to their anchors. They turn to their history. And they immediately start saying, not until this happens, not until that happens, I have to wait until this, I have to wait until that. They go backwards into their history and they start pointing to all their anchors as the reason why they can't act in the present moment on the guidance that's just come through them. And what they're really doing, what you're doing in a moment when you do that, is you're doing a white rabbit calculation. What you're doing is you're using denial to pack time into a piece of energy. You are matterizing. That's a word I made up. You're putting density into densifying a piece of light information. you are filling it with denial. So instead of acting on it right away, let me give you a practical one so it just makes sense to you. You walk in and you think, what's the matter with my husband? What's the matter with my wife? What's the matter with my child? You get an immediate hit. They're on drugs. They're cheating on you. They're this. They're Martian. Who knows what? But you don't like it. You know it's right. You know it's the truth. You know it's exactly the hit that you just got is right on target, but you don't like it. That's not what you want to hear. Because if it was, because that truth means that it's going to change your whole life. Truth always changes your whole life. It's a game changer. It always is. Whether it's a little truth or a big truth, it's always going to change your life. And you think, I don't like that. So now you have to build time into it. And how you build time into it is you anchor it in denial. You then say, no, that's not. It's just a bad day. Just a bad day. And you start to build a mythology, a story, a narrative, not a mythology, a narrative that counters the intuitive feeling, that soothes it, like putting Pepto-Bismol down your gullet so that you don't feel like I shouldn't have eaten that. I can feel it erupting in my gut, but you don't want to feel it erupting. So you down Pepto-Bismol so you can get away with eating something you shouldn't have eaten. It doesn't make it okay that you ate that. It just covers it up for the next 2 hours so you can relax a little bit. But the fact is, you ate something that shouldn't be in your body. In that same way, you just got a hit. And you don't want it to penetrate any deeper in your system. You don't want it to talk to you any deeper than it is. So you have to build time into it. So you tell yourself a narrative that's not true. He's just having a bad day. Must be this, must be that. And you start acting on your narrative, blocking out conversations that even hint of the truth. You might even block out friendships, block out social avenues, social connections that might spark any hint of that truth. And what you are doing is you're packing that light with time. And the weeks go by, and now months go by, and now perhaps years go by because you're not prepared to hear that, to act on it, to have your life change at the speed of a light hit thought to form. So if you walk in and think, my husband, my wife is cheating on me, knowing full well if that were true, you'd be like, well, this is over with. That's done. This is so over with. It's not funny because there's no second chance in my ballpark. So done, out. I'm going to pack his bags. Let me see. It's noon. By 5, his bag's packed, and I'm going to get on the phone with the lawyer because that's how I play ball. And it's over with. And that's it, because I got the hit. I know I'm right. There's no conversation. Nothing's left. I will never trust again. I cannot trust that person again. Trust is over with. Faith, trust, cheating, done. Woo, how I feel about cheaters. Ugh, done. All over. Done. But perhaps some people don't move at the speed of light. They have to work through denial. And then 5 years later, it's over with. And what they will say to me is, I knew this was coming, but they couldn't do it in 5 seconds. They needed 5 years. They needed to do the white rabbit. They needed to play with time. We play with time all the time. We play with time through our narratives. We make up things. We get intuitive hits all the time. All the time. And then we decide, how fast do I really want to know this? How fast do I really, really, really want to know this? Will I say it's possible or impossible? How fast do I want this truth to take charge of my life. And if we don't want a direct hit of the light, if we don't want to really be blinded by the light and let it come in and sweep through, we create narratives that tell, nah, I don't think, and we start negotiating with the truth through denial. No, it's not possible. Well, maybe it's impossible. It's possible, impossible, I'm not sure. And we keep it in the mental realm until it gradually, slowly makes its way down our throat and into our heart. Until one day we realize our heart and our heads bang together and change happens. And it change happens organically. So, what's that question? Did I have a question come up?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions, but we can wait until
No,
you
no, I
finish.
can take questions now.
Yeah, okay.
Sure, go ahead.
There's one question. How long do I need to take in this truth? This is what we have been doing with the climate crisis for the last 30 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look at how many people in our climate crisis are absolutely saying it's not possible versus possible. This is exactly what's going on. It's not possible. It's not possible that our planet is changing when in fact, the rest of us are on the other side saying it's exactly what's going on. It's exactly what's going on. We are, and what's the word we're using is the deniers. And what's the other word we're using? We're running out of time. We're running out of time. We are, you know, it is, we are exactly in a down the rabbit hole crisis. You better believe we are. We better believe we are. Absolutely.
Caroline, we have another question from Mary McNamara. She's asking, can the root of all these manifestations be traced to the dominance of the left hemisphere of the brain over the right so progressively in today's world?
I don't go with brain stuff. I don't pay any attention to that. I really don't. I think it's tracked to a whole lot of things. It's tracked to philosophy, to Plato, to Aristotle, to language, to sociology, to prejudice, to, I mean, it is a whole potpourri of culture. I mean, to our trust of reason, to human instincts, to our trust of the physical world, to our, and basically it comes down to how fear of survival governs the choices we make. And if it really comes down to it, it's that at the end of the day, fear of survival governs politics and choices. It's as simple as that. Never mind left or right brain. Not that stuff is both that stuff. I have no use for it. I have no use for it. None. Because it's human nature at its base level calls the shots. Versus faith, versus the power of the soul. Which brings me to this. I wanted to emphasize this because I need to talk to you all about how your guidance system works. Precisely because we are at a crisis change. We are at the greatest turning point in the history of civilization. So let's just jump to the bottom line here. The whole of humanity's down the rabbit hole. Let me just put it that way. We've never been at a more precarious moment in the history of humanity. And at the same time, we've never been at a place where the potential for change can be at a more mystical speed. Now, just hear what I'm saying to you, at a mystical speed. And I'm speaking to you as someone who has truly thrown herself into trying to understand the nature of healing. Ordinary healing, ordinary, which is vertical, horizontal, hour by hour by hour chemical. Here's a bottle of medicine that says, you take this for 6 weeks, which, AKA take this, you're going to be sick for 6 weeks, versus the speed of a miracle. What's a miracle? It's a vertical healing, a healing that happens at the speed of light. Now, I want to talk to you about the nature of guidance and the nature of intuition and the nature of the world behind your eye, which I want you to think of those words, possible and impossible, as kind of like the words that I would ask you as a spiritual director to reflect on. Like, how do you talk to yourself? Are you somebody who constantly regulates the speed of your imagination, the speed of what's possible by your 5 senses, like like a mathematician, like someone locked into the physical world because of your need to control the speed at which change happens? So if you apply this to climate change, it's no different than the reason science and oil people and all of those big business titans are holding on to their empires and denying climate change, because for them, the idea of shifting to a solarized world where we could fuel and warm the world with an abundance of solar energy that can work the planet, can work the cars, can work planes, boats, trains, automobiles, cars, and you name it, can work it abundantly and clean the environment and grow our food and clean the ocean and who knows what else, is because they cannot imagine an economy, a solar economy. They cannot imagine, they cannot possibly imagine a place where they're not in an oil power based situation. So for them, it's impossible. It's impossible. And that's the word they've chosen. And here's how guidance works. And guidance works. Guidance is a light energy, a light language. It's a language of light. Grace is a language of light. It is not a matter-based language. It's not a rational language. There's nothing rational in the world of mysticism. It is a language of light. And like there's nothing rational down your rabbit hole. If I said to you, let me see the booklet you wrote about yourself describing how to get along with you. If you think it would be rational, you're crazy. You have all these rules and regulations based on your childhood, your wounds, your preferences, your secrets, all kinds of things. And it's all in the micro detail of you. And I think some of the uber wealthy, what?
Amy says, I think some of the uber wealthy believe that mass death events are inevitable given our climate pollution setup. Their interest is in accumulation as much as wealth.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah. Okay, so listen to me, all of you. This is the way your guidance works. And what you, just as an aside, I'm going to hit a pause button. Something you have to keep in mind, and something I tell my students all the time. There's a reason you're alive now. And that reason is not to be frightened. There's a reason you're alive now. And that's because you're needed and you're necessary. And what life needs and what heaven needs is your strength and the power of your soul, not your panic, not your rage, not your anger, but your cleverness, your creativity, your faith, the power of your soul. That's what's needed. That's what's needed. Because that is what will make you an agent of change in the right way. This it's a privilege to be alive now, but it's the greatest skill you can learn are the skills of the invisible world, the technology of the soul, and I do mean that's high tech, the tech of the world behind your eye. The way guidance works is that soul guidance is always in present tense. It always speaks present tense. It always, when you are guided, you are always given guidance to do something that has not been done before. Whether it's the smallest thing in a conversation, like if Georgie and I are talking and I'm thinking, how can I help her out of this or whatever, I will never be directed to tell her to do something she's done before. Never. I will always be directed to tell her to move forward in some direction, to go in a place she has not been before. This is how guidance works. This is how guidance works. We often guide each other to go backwards because we're afraid. And in going backwards, you are slowing time down. You're preventing somebody from moving ever toward a deeper understanding of truth. You're slowing the wheel down. But the way higher guidance works is that it always, always, always moves you in the direction of the next great realization. That way. You're going that way. And it's always in present tense. It's present tense. Go now. Go now. And when you get guidance, it's for now. It's not for yesterday, and it's not for a year from now. Heaven does not, it's like a delivery system. You don't get next year's dinner today. You get it now. When I was living in New Hampshire years ago, I can't believe how long ago it was, but anyway, I flew back from London one time. I was lecturing over there and I flew back. And as the plane was landing and I looked out the window and I saw Boston, and I was living in New Hampshire, so I had to fly into Logan all the time. And the stewardess said, welcome to the United States. And for those of you who Americans, welcome home, blah, 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 blah. And I looked down at Boston and I thought, Boston's a great, great city, but it's not my city. I grew up in Chicago, and I'd been living in New England 10 years at that point. And I just love New England, but I never felt rooted there. And all of a sudden, the awareness, the depth to which I didn't feel rooted hit me like a tsunami of rootlessness. And I thought, I don't know, should I move to England? Where should I go? So I get back to the farm, which is a 2-hour ride. I walk into my farmhouse. I have my suitcase. I have my coat on. And I hear, go home. That's it. That's what I heard. Go home. I put my suitcase down. I put it down. I went right to the phone. I never took my coat off. I called my mother, and my father had passed away by this time, and my aunt and my mom were living in the house I grew up in. And I was trying to decide, do I move to Europe, or do I move back to Chicago? I didn't know what to do. All I knew is I'd received the guidance, go home. That was it. So I said, do you mind if I move back for a while? I got to get my bearings. And that meant now. And this was on a Monday. I said, I'll be home Friday. That was it. I got my guidance. I wasn't going to wait. This wasn't going to take a month. It was going to take days. Then I called my brother. I said, I have to fly you out so you could help me drive home. I'll get a van. Then I called the van company. Then I called the people that took care of the farm when I was gone, and they came and packed me up, and I was gone on Friday. Because that's when I got the guidance, and I was gone 3 days later, after 10 years. Because that's how fast I move. When I get guidance, that's when I move. I can tell you that that's how I've always lived, with guidance that fast. I get it, I do it, that's it. I've never not worked that way. And I think that's why I'm good with readings, because it's been such a clear language for me. And I'm telling you, your guidance works the same way. So just hit that. 2, guidance is always potential directed. Now, this is an important thing to understand, because it's very easy to look at climate change, and it's very easy to look at all of our problems. They're not problems, really. They're predicaments. Problems are easily solved. Predicaments aren't. So we're in a hell of a lot of predicaments. Still. We are the engines of co-creation here. A lot of the mess we are participating in. This isn't happening to us, it's happening through us. You have to remember that. You have to remember that. And you have to remember that a faithless attitude in you contributes to climate change. Don't think because you recycle that you're just doing everything you can do. If you have a hateful attitude, if you have a hostile attitude, I'm telling you, the negative attitude, it's the same thing I see in like health. If someone is sitting across from me and they say, I'm taking all these vitamins and I'm eating so healthy and I'm doing all of this and all that, and yet I see in them their rage that they hold toward their family members. And I think, go eat cat food, because you are never going to heal. I don't care what you're doing with your holistic food garbage, blah, 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 blah. Your attitude is poison and you're going nowhere. What's that? Everyone first they ignore. What is that? Georgie?
First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You have to learn not to care what they say. You have to become stronger than they are. You can't, listen, the thing about guidance, the thing about you, is if you're in this world for everybody else's approval, go retire, get out of the game. You cannot be on my team because you're not strong enough. You're not strong enough. You're simply not strong enough. And I've got news for you. If your life is all about other people approving of you, you can't even heal a cold. Why do you think self-esteem matters so much? The esteem of yourself. You know, one of the things I've looked at so deeply is the nature of miracles. Miracles. A miracle is a absolute 4-star experience of falling down the rabbit hole. What is a miracle? And why in this, I just finished recording yesterday. I was in a recording studio for the last 3 days. And I was recording my audio for my new book, which will be out next year, called The Power of Holy Language. And in this, one of the points I wanted to describe and emphasize is the phenomenon of miracle. And because I've witnessed miracles, and that fascinated me. And so I became intrigued with healing and people healing and who heals and how can someone heal and how come, because I always knew that healing was something that we obviously are able to participate in. But a miracle is something where somebody goes from one condition to out of that condition at a speed that is considered impossible. Here again, the word possible, impossible, okay? The words. And then I thought, how come some people seem to be able to reach that peak and etc. So here, I'm going to share this with all of you because it's really, really important to get this. One of the main characteristics of who we are that has never been a part of the human journey before is that we, the people of the nuclear era, are obsessed with ourselves. We're obsessed with ourselves. We're obsessed with our opinions. We think everything we have to say is important. Every emotion we have is significant. Blah, 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 blah. No, it's not, but we think so. But the reason we think so is significant. And the reason is because we are on this course to develop self-esteem, awareness about the power of every choice we make. That's what's really at stake here. What is really going on is that we're waking up to the power of our soul, to the power of this force we are. It's not about how significant an opinion. None of your opinions are significant at the end of the day. You change them and, here and there. Who cares what your opinion is? Who cares about all that? You won't remember your opinion next week. Why should I? But what's really important is that you get how powerful every choice you make is. That every word you say is actually an act of creation. An act of creation. That every thought you have sends forces of creation into motion. That you are a co-creator in this field of life. That all life breathes together. That as you heal yourself, you heal the whole. That's the new law. That's the new bio-spiritual, ecological theology. All life breathes together. That the real truth is that we're not helpless. We just don't like how intimate we really are. We don't like it. And we insist on our own selfness instead of getting that what is in one is in the whole and living by that truth. The hell with your recycling. Get yourself humble enough to get that we are part of every single person. And what you do to one, you really are doing to everybody. And start living those truths. These are the bio-spiritual, mystical laws of the universe. These are the ones that make the difference. These are the ones. These are the ones. To become strong enough to be humble. To become strong enough to be humble, to actually live these truths and not fall apart because someone looks at you and goes, oh, come on. And then you have to process that for 6 years of your life. You need a backbone, not a wishbone. You really want to make a difference? Become strong enough to be humble. To where you get, I really got to get that every choice I make matters. And therefore, I need to choose to manage the power of me and not need anybody's approval. I can't run to every single person. Do you think I'm good? Do you think I'm wonderful? Did you see that? Did you hear that? Did you this? Blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you why people don't have miracles. And this ties into self-esteem. It takes a hell of a lot of esteem to be given an experience in life that you can't validate. You can't prove it. You can't validate it. You cannot prove a miracle. Not at all. All you can have is people say, why did that happen? I don't even believe you were ever that sick. Why did it happen to you? The strength of spirit you have to be given, not spirit, the strength of soul you have to be given an experience you cannot prove, nobody else will ever have, and people will envy. To be able to stand in that and withstand the tsunami of doubt that comes from you, from people who wish, who crave contact with the sacred through you, who crave it. The amount of faith you have to have in yourself, in your own experience of what you experience, in your own capacity to withstand their doubt is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. So I'm going to open up questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My gosh, I could listen to you forever. But here or not, I think you are wonderful. Thank you, Caroline, for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us.
Let me just end on this. I want to tell all of your students, all of you, that the important thing for you to develop, in addition to your studies, is your faith. You to have, and I'm not talking religion. I never talk religion. Religion's a costume party. It is vitally important for you to have faith in something other than yourself, in some higher power, in some inner resource, in the capacity to pray, in the capacity to say, help me out here. Help me out. I need a download of grace and I need it now. I need it. The rational, this outside world is going to get crazier before it gets better. You have to trust your inner world. You have to have this capacity to close your eyes and say, give me some grace and give it to me now. I need help. You have to be able to trust what you hear on the inside and not run to another person and say, do you think I really got this guidance? Do you think it came to me? You must be able to esteem yourself enough that when guidance is given to you, you act on it without first asking other people's permission for you to be you. That's the journey. That's the journey of life. Okay, and I wish you all such a wondrous, blessed holiday season and a merry winter and all those wondrous things. So now ask me questions and tell me also what, I have a question for you. While you're at it, I'd love to know what impossible things you came up with. Because in my world, you wouldn't believe what I think is impossible. Everything's possible. So talk to me.
Okay, may I start the questioning time, please, Caroline? Two questions, please. At the very beginning, you were talking about illness, that how illness manifests itself in a physical form. And I was wondering that you did say as well that when you do a reading and X and Y, you see, if we do not have access to you, clearly we don't, because it's too many of us. What are the guidelines? What would you say that the bullet points that we can do to unravel our emotional, psychological blocks besides writing the book of Georgie in the Wonderland or something?
I think one of the instructions that I give to people truly is that you become mindful of the quality of your choices and develop a daily practice of reflection. Of why did I do what I just did? What did I do with my power? Number two, You give up the word blame. You can never use the word blame or deserve again. You can't use those words anymore. You cannot blame another person for the choices that you make. It's just not allowed. You may never do that again. You may never, ever do it again. So you have to really start putting in a titanium backbone. And you really have to hold yourself accountable. So there's a good word you want to introduce. Not responsible. Responsible is useless. It's accountable to yourself and to others for the quality, and not just quality, but for the reasons why you make the choices that you do. And you have to say, and really, this is how you become conscious. You have to say, I did this because, it's kind of like, and one of the things I introduce, for example, in holy language, Georgie, is that a lot of the words we've taken out from mystical traditions, we're paying a price for. And one of the words is sin, for example. We don't say that word anymore, to our detriment. To our detriment. And one of the reasons why people find it very difficult to forgive is because they use language that doesn't get inside. Gets in the brain, but it doesn't get where the wound is. So they'll say, I know I was responsible, but that doesn't help anybody. That lets you off the hook. But truly, if they put the word sin back, we'd be a little bit more helpful, because this is the reason. What's a sin? A sin is when I consciously choose, emphasis on the word conscious. I consciously choose to do something, say something that I know full well is going to harm you or change your life. And I'm conscious of it. And because I know how the non-physical world works, I know that I've been warned ahead of time not to do that. I know it. Just like everybody knows that everybody's had the experience of being told ahead of time, are you sure you want to say that? You could feel it in your bones. You could feel this isn't the right thing to do. And you've gotten that hit. But you do it anyway. And it's conscious. And what makes it difficult to forgive a person is beyond the actual thing they did, is that it was conscious, and they lie about that. That's it. It's the sin they can't let go of. So when someone says, I never meant to hurt you, that's a lie. So on top of everything else, both people know that that's the lie. That we both know, because we know how our souls are wired, that you were warned ahead of time. You received that information. I know your angel told you that this was going to destroy me, or my angel told me that what I was going to do was going to destroy you. And I did it anyway. And that's what makes it a sin. And that's why you can't forgive. And that's where we need to come together, and where I need to say to somebody, you know what? You're right. I did know. I did hear the warning. And of my own conscious self, I chose to sin against you. And my soul has harmed your soul. And I need forgiveness. Now, that's the level we have to start living at. We have to go down deep again. It is not enough to talk this consciousness nonsense. We have to start living raw at the soul level. This is the new theology. Bio-spiritual, ecological theology. We have to start living these truths. I'm sick of people talking it. You got to live it.
Yeah, true. Thank you. That's super powerful. Thank you so much, Karen. The other question I may have is just when you were talking about the relationship between time and us, recently I read or heard somewhere that time is memory. Would you agree with that?
I think your biography becomes your biology.
Mm.
So maybe that's a version of it, but I know that your biography is biologically located. I know because I do readings and I see it in your bio-spiritual tissue. And I know, and I've witnessed thousands of times that when you change your bio data, your biographical data, and a healing, a forgiveness, an act of forgiveness alters biographical data. Okay? That is reflected in your your tissue.
Mm.
So it youth ups. I mean, it how do I say? It puts more light in your tissue, and that heals your tissue. It's all one grand, wondrous system.
Mm-hmm.
People should forgive for selfish reasons. I mean, it's the healthiest thing you can do. I'm not kidding you. Lighten up. And that you shouldn't tell yourself things that are not, you shouldn't believe things that are not true.
Yeah.
You shouldn't support Trump. I mean, you shouldn't. And nothing. Don't stay away from devils.
No, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Well, people are waiting. So Raffaello, over to you. Let's hear from you.
Okay, let's see if I managed to unmute myself. Seems like I did. Great. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much, Caroline. I found this second seminar different from the first one. You know, I feel in the first one you were really bringing us a lot of wisdom about the book itself, and now in the second one I feel like our horizons went even farther into healing and manifestation and the power of guidance. So I'm super excited by all of this. Thank you for that. That was amazing. My question is still on the Alice character, because I noticed that as I was starting to reread the book, and I haven't finished yet, I read it before a few years ago, but also I allowed myself to watch the 1951 cartoon by Disney, you know, just kind of like...
Did you like it?
I love it. I went back to my memories of when I was a child with that, but also taking it, you know, cum grano salis, of course, that's just a cartoon, a Disney cartoon. But I noticed that I was a little bit triggered by the character of Alice, in the sense, and here, you know, here's how my trigger unraveled in me. And I was like, okay, so here we are, another feminine hero. Mm-hmm. Well, there's not many of them, first of all, but...
Yeah, when you say another, where are they?
Well, yeah, no, but the another goes into another time where the feminine hero is presented under the light of innocence, you know, and purity, in this angelical way, where I'm like, okay, great, but where is the wildness? Where is the emotionality? Of course, she cries and gets angry, and there is definitely no hint of any physical eros in her, for example. In the book, I don't remember how old she is, but in the Hollywood adaptation that they made now, she's right about to be married. So she's 19, you know, she's like a woman for that age. But still she goes into this childlike innocence.
Yeah.
And that triggers me, because I feel that nowadays, when we are speaking so much about the balance between feminine and masculine in men and women, you know, any gender, I'm like, okay, do we still need these angelical characters to hold point for the feminine? Whereas, you know, at least the male heroes, they're allowed some brushness and some wildness and to get dirty in the mud. But not there. And so when you mentioned, you know, the biographical data about Lewis Carroll being so interested in children,
little girls,
in little girls,
yeah.
I was curious. I was like, you know, I would like to go down that rabbit hole and see why did he then need to make his girl, his Alice girl, into such a light feminine, let's put it this way, light feminine archetype. So where's the dark feminine in that story?
Well, the dark feminine was in the world behind his eyes, trust me. You know, this is probably not the place to discuss Lewis Carroll's pedophilia inclinations, and I'm not an expert on that part of his life, so I can't really address that too much. But I think that the collective psyche hadn't, maybe it was out of the range. If you look, the idea of feminine heroes wasn't yet quite, you know, maturing somehow or other. And if you look at, you know, we had princesses. We had, you know, if you look at the little matchstick girls, little helpless girls, Hansel and Gretel, little girls that are lost in the woods, pursued by a big bad wolf. But there was something about keeping girls innocent, keeping them, especially in the Victorian age, keeping them in ways that would, out of the imagination, that they could be, there's this innocence that was perpetrated in these stories. You know, I mean, I think that's why the feminist movement exploded. You know, just exploded out, and it said, where's our shadow side? You know, where's our own shadow side? And there's the Queen of Hearts. Yes, go ahead and speak to that. The Queen of Hearts was sort of a character, but not the little girl. You want to speak to the Queen of Hearts? Get that.
Well, it's not me that posted that question, but I was about to actually mention that about the Queen of Hearts. So it's like, here we have a woman that's raging and that's
insane. But she's insane.
Exactly.
She's
So
seen as crazy and off with their heads, and in very looking at the aristocrats in a mocking way. Remember that she's representing a class of a ruling class of people.
So I guess maybe my final question for you is, like, do you feel that now we are ready as a civilization to bring back the dark feminine and the light feminine together in a new vision of femininity that's not just innocent? You know, because to be honest, I'm not down with innocence, because innocence means incapacity or inability to harm. Literally, that's what the word means.
I don't. First of all, I don't think that any one book represents any full portrait of how a society sees the whole dialogue of the unconscious about the feminine or the masculine. It's just Lewis Carroll's toe in that water. That's number one. So you can't discuss the whole evolution of consciousness and the feminine and the masculine, and how the child archetype was portrayed just through Lewis Carroll. That's his experience of it in little bitty Victorian England. So let's just remember where he's coming from, and the characters that he was dealing with that represented archetypal figures of aristocrats that he saw through a certain lens. I always have to position where you're coming, you know, where an author's coming from. Like Dickens with his characters, they were very much the social energy of the industrial age and the child abuse age, and his social language of that time. You know, and he obviously had, where was his language of the feminine? You know, it was Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, his characters. And then he had little Estelle, captive by Havisham. you know, and Pip. I mean, so it's interesting how the characters of the feminine in that part of the world at that time were so Victorianish, but they didn't represent the whole feminine at all. You're talking about the Western world and this tiny little island. So now you're saying, is it ready to bring something back? Back isn't a word I can apply. Nothing ever comes back. We always move ever forward. And this balance between the masculine and the feminine, the anima, animas, this constant Mobius that goes this way, that weaves its way through literature, it weaves its way through music, it weaves its way through art, it weaves its way through the political struggles on the earth. It weaves its way through everything. We can find that struggle even in our conversations with everybody, with each other. How someone can make you feel very masculine and then the next moment very feminine. This Mobius it's in the air, it's in our psyche, it's in our blood and in our bones. So when I look at great literature, I think of the symbolic power of it is that it speaks to us today. It speaks to us today. And that's what's important to me, far more than almost what Lewis Carroll meant then. It's like scripture. I'm not analyzing what Lewis Carroll meant then. I like the archetypal language and how it's still active today for us. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Raffaello. But we only have 10 minutes left, and then we have 3 attendees hands up. So let's try to keep it as succinct as possible. So, Vivian.
Hello.
Hi. Yes, we can hear you.
So last time I had asked
Vivian, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
So last time I asked you about how to pursue divine intervention, and you said that I needed to accept it. And I have really contemplated that, and I thought that the pursue was masculine, and the accept is a feminine thing, right? It's a feminine archetype to accept something. And I really have been working towards that. And I feel like this whole thing, what you were talking about, the vertical, the miracle, that is a an acceptance kind of thing. You just it comes to you, and having the self-esteem to accept it is the thing that I feel like exactly the can I trust this, that this is real, that's come to me. And yeah, that's what what I did is I went through my impossible things, and I marked out the I am and I said 6 possible things and changed every one of those to possibilities. And
oh, can you share some? Can you share anything?
Well, yeah, so it was interesting when we had our last class. I said one of the things was Danielle would go into remission, and that's my friend that and unfortunately she died. I mean, like within a week. So it was really weird. But now she's being used as a model for the Duke Power coal ash debacle. She's been in film and stuff for that. So her death is being magnified. It's very sad. We're in mourning about it, but it's making things possible. It's really very sad and strange, but it's a miracle. It really is a miracle. And the other one was Duke Power will stop burning coal. And there were some things that passed that happened local that made that happen. So miracles have happened, and I can go into, I won't go into other ones. I'll let other people talk. But one of the other things that that you said that was so interesting with this whole accept is I joined this group, The Way of the Rose, and it's a book. And I've
Oh,
been,
are you kidding? I endorsed that book.
oh my gosh. So I've been praying the rosary, and I've invited the authors to come to North Carolina to our home. And that, so it's just been one miracle after the other. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Well done. You know, one of the ways of guidance, and I think The Way of the Rose is one of the most powerful books to come out this last
Amazing.
year. I've sent that book to so many people I can't even count.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's one of the few books I've ever sent out to lots of people, more than my own books.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is so cool.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I love Clark Strand, and I
Yeah.
love that. I love his other book I read and studied. It's just, yeah, that's cool.
Right. So well done. Thank you for bringing that book up. One of the, and this is for everybody, one of the ways of guidance, everyone, is that guidance never, ever, ever takes you backwards. It will never direct you to the history of your life. It will never tell you to look backwards or to do anything again that you've already done. Guidance will never direct you to repeat yourself, ever. It doesn't work that way. But guidance will frequently direct you to do something that you will think is impossible. And the reason is because guidance weaves itself into the need for faith and trust. So that's the way it works. That's how the nature of the divine works in your life. I just need to weave it back to an Alice word. Okay, another question?
Thank you so much. Yes. Vivian, do you mind? Would you have another question? We just have
Oh,
only
no,
5
fine.
minutes
Go ahead.
left.
Thank you, Vivian. Big hug.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan.
Hello.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. I see I'm now called on. Interesting. My computer disconnected at the same exact moment. Can you see me?
Yes.
Great. Carolyn, thank you for your energy that you brought today. I was really felt the force of it coming toward me and the intensity of it and the passion behind it. And I just want to share with you the difference between the first class on Alice and today, what's arising for me. So in the first class on Alice, really listening deeply to the rabbit hole, the conversation around time. And for me, it was also a conversation around consciousness. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that came to me was a poem by Billy Collins that's called On Turning 10. And it's a really exquisite poem that really speaks about, again, it's an evolutionary process that speaks about the beauty and potential of our childhood consciousness to hold any possibility.
Yes.
And that it lives in us as children. And somehow around the age between 9 and 12, we shut that down and we lose that capacity for magic in our lives, and we take on the structures, we take on the thought forms of our parents and our culture, we take on energetically the trauma that is also passed down to us perhaps, or inflicted upon us in this lifetime, and that we start living through that as a lens, and we close down to that magic. And so this poem On Turning 10 really is Billy Collins' view of how that experience affected him, and the language shift through the poem from magical to very practical and very linear and very matter of fact. And at that stage, he falls down and bleeds, basically. There's pain there. There's suffering in that transition. So for me, the consciousness shift that Alice is experiencing, she's actually not experiencing a shift per se. I'm looking at her as being the archetype, again, of the child consciousness that is willing to accept anything in front. And all of the absurdity of Wonderland comes toward her, and she's willing. She receives it. She walks. She works with it. She plays with it.
She explores it.
Explores it, and she's
She
right
explores
there.
Wonderland.
And I was thinking to myself, I'm wondering also if that story, as told through the lens of a young boy, would somehow be different. If this again, as Raffaello was mentioning, the idea that a girl's consciousness is something different than a boy's consciousness developing, especially in a patriarchal culture.
Well, I'm sure about that, but let me respond to two things. One is that idea that, you know, that at age 10, you know, just as a neutral point, I've learned from through my craft doing readings that it's an interesting way we develop. From birth to 7, our first chakra takes over. It's from roughly 7.5 to 14, our second chakra. And the issues of that chakra take over. And then we shift from age 14 to 21 into our third chakra. And so in the puberty age, and which is why we need rituals that govern each of these chakras as we shift in making our transition into, which is why there's a warrior ritual or confirmation or bar mitzvah as we go into the 11 to 13 area, as we go into the era of being a young conscious person, but it's a confirming our sense of power, our sense of standing a little taller within our tribal consciousness. And we are kind of biophysically suited up for that task. And we've dropped the ball on this, on these rituals. And somehow or other, we look at the society and we say, it's so evil out there and it's just crushing us, as if society has not always been this huge evolutionary dark force. You think that's new, Susan? You think that that's new? You're acting like it's somehow, you know, like it's a brand new dark force out there. It's always been this way, always. So, and it's always going to be this way. That's just the way it is. That's the way it is. And so it's up to how we suit up. It's how we suit up. The rituals we teach our children, how we help them to handle their inner life in a world out there, because that's never going to change. It's never going to be Wonderland out there. It has to be Wonderland in here. That's just the way it is. And I somehow think that whether we look at it through, I find I no longer can see the world through whether it's masculine or feminine. I prefer human. I can't do that anymore. I can't see it through the masculine, through the feminine, I don't know how that serves anything. I just don't. I think that keeps up the divisions of right, wrong, good, bad, male, female, etc. That's a level of polarity that I can't go near anymore. I see it from a very different point of view, which is we're humans dealing with the energy field of life, and it's in all of us. It's in all of us. And what is in one is in the whole. And in this life, you may be a woman and a man, and it's just all the same energy that we're dealing with. But now I want to close on something. May I do that?
Yeah, but actually we have one more question, and there is one more question in the chat box. Do you mind if we go over a few minutes, maybe maximum 5 minutes?
All right.
Because it's a song, could you actually ask your question? Do you mind if you'll keep it short, because we should be leaving now?
Thank you so much. Okay, I love the teaching very much. My question is, you talked a lot about the power and the choices, but I feel more I don't feel like we actually have the choice. I feel we are more like one feather falling down from the sky. Is the energy is vibrating, and the force, we sense the forces. Then we read the signal. So I don't feel I have any choices for or anything. So like for normally I read, oh, that's me, that's something. But yeah, that's my question and my feeling about the power and the choices, and like give me some grace. I don't know. Yeah, I don't feel we have the choices over anything.
I understand that. I truly understand that. I think one of the greatest mysteries is, what do we have choice over? What's a choice look like? What is the power of a choice? I think, heaven's very clever. Yanjun. Did I say your name right? Yanjun?
Yes.
What a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Heaven works in such interesting ways. You've opened up a subject that I could stay here all day with you. And that's, heaven's got a very clever way to it. What looks big is really small. What looks small is really big. What looks powerful is really weak. What looks weak and humble is really powerful. I want you to remember this. The nature of God is paradox. Paradox. What the nature of God is that everything, like the rabbit hole, is reversed, is through the looking glass, is not what you think. In the physical world, we think that to make a difference, we have to make a big choice with a lot of money and a lot of power. But in the soul world, in the world in here, in the world where heaven is your ally, has your backside, there's no reason you should believe me. There's no reason at all. But I'm telling you the truth. And that's the tiniest mustard seed choice that you make with faith. And I don't mean faith in a church. Believe you me, I do not. God doesn't have a religion, doesn't have a church, doesn't have anything. God doesn't look like us. It is a force. I just have to use that word. But the slightest trust you have in that force and the laws, the way the laws work, which is, if I believe and trust what's being told to my soul, it doesn't matter what they're doing. If you trust what you know in the world behind your eyes, hold to your soul tighter than anything you see in front of you at all times. This world in front of you is the illusion. Even when I look at climate change, I think there was once a time when polio was an epidemic. And when human beings felt empowered enough and they stopped thinking they were emotionally crippled, that's how they thought of themselves. They used to say, we're economically crippled. As soon as they stopped using that language in the 1950s after World War II, then they could hear, Jonas Salk could hear the inspiration of how to create the vaccine for polio. As soon as we see ourselves as able to live as a human community, humble with each other, not needing to dominate, we'll receive our way through this. We'll get the candles in the night we're looking for. Believe me. Believe me, we will. Believe me. I promise you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Over to you for the last words, and I would like to share just the closing remarks with our group.
Okay, so I'm ending with Alice. Oh, I've had such a curious dream, said Alice. And she told her sister, as well as she could remember them, all the strange adventures of hers that you've just been reading about in Wonderland. And when she'd finished, her sister kissed her and said, it was a curious dream, dear, certainly. But now run into your tea. It's getting late. So Alice got up and ran off, thinking while she ran, as well as she might, what a wonderful dream it'd been.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Well, on behalf of the Wisdom School, I'd like to extend our deepest, most profound appreciation for your teachings, guidance, sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. Thank you so much. And dear attendees, thank you so much for joining for these 2 wonderful lectures and for previous lectures as well. Join us next year. We have fabulous, great books to present. So wishing you a wonderful festive season. Have a great rest, love, appreciate each other, and just keep evolving. Thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.